But yeah, if you're brand new here, you've never been here before. First of all, thank you for participating today, jumping on, whether you're watching live or you're watching later. Would love for you to be a part of the channel here. So be sure to go ahead and click all the things that you need to click the subscribe button. But clearly, you want to do that, right? Don't forget also hit the like button. And don't forget that little bell notification, because you'll know when I go live, because I go live every Wednesday morning for prayer at 8 a.m. And I also go live at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time on Wednesdays as well. So yeah, both prayer and office hours is on Wednesday, because it's Wednesday right now. So anyway, yeah, be sure to go ahead and click all the things, and you'll get information and so forth. Lots of videos. Just went over 1,000 videos. There's 1,000 videos on this channel, and so I hope that you will check it out. If you want more youth ministry resources, well, you can go to thediscipleproject.net. Lots of things over there. You get access to my podcast. You can get articles. There's over 1,200 youth ministry articles there that I've done over on my blog. There's a newsletter. I'll put a link down to that in the doobly-doo down there. You can check that out if you want resources in your inbox on a weekly basis, and that's everything from videos to free resources to Bible lessons to articles, all the things. I try to do all the research for you, and that way you have the free time to be able to not do that research. All right, so as we move on, like I said, as you're coming in, you can leave questions there in the comments there, and would love to hear your questions. But I'm going to start off by answering the first question. And the first question that I have today is, and it's a common question, is how many hours should a part-time youth pastor work? Now, I'm a part-time youth pastor, so I can answer that question. And really, it's really based upon the negotiation you have with the church or with the pastor or whoever's doing the hiring process. And so if they're saying, look, on standard, if a 40-hour week is, full-time, it's more than that if you're a full-time youth pastor, let's be honest. It's more like 70 hours, or 60 hours, depending on, what events are going on or what things you have and what the church is required, how big is your church, all those kind of things. So I think you have to be able to negotiate your regular life, that's, you, your family, the other job you may have, and then be able to negotiate that against what the church is expecting. So I would say, depending on the size of the church, if you have a small church, if you have 100 members, I'd say 10 to 15 hours a week. It's, you don't have, unless they're requiring you to be at a ton of other meetings, which I don't see that happening in a small church per se. The bigger the church, well, then you're going to get, more hours and probably be full-time, unless you're an intern or something like that. But in a bigger church, if you're a big church, why don't you have, if you have 500 members or more, you probably should have a full-time youth pastor, because if you're going by the 10% rule, then you would have 50 kids in your ministry. Or you're trying to build on that, or whatever that may be. So I would say, first of all, to you that are pastors that are listening, don't hire a part-time youth pastor to do a full-time job, because it's not going to work out the way you think it's going to work out. I would say if you're going to hire a part-time, if you're a small church, then part-time works that way. If you're a bigger church and you want to be able to hire a youth pastor, well, hire them full-time then. They're worth that. And because I think too, like for me, 10 hours a week is suitable for our size church, because I'm there on Sundays, right? You have Sundays and Wednesdays, whatever the midweek is. And then any work that I do from home, which, I don't see too many part-time youth pastors having to be in the office for various reasons. And I don't know if I see that much reason for full-time youth pastors to be in the office unless they're there for meetings or things of that nature. So, yeah. So if you're doing, you got your 3 hours on, Sunday, and maybe your 2 to 3 hours on Wednesday. So that's 5. That's half your hours. And the other 5 hours you're spending maybe having lunch with a student, creating graphics, planning calendar, and you can be able to look at that and say, hey, I'm going to, justify that, and be able to say, hey, I can, put that in the mix and make that, my 10 hours. And once again, I think you have to negotiate. I think you have to negotiate with your church and say, hey, what are you expecting me to do? Now, I have a little graphic here. Let me see if I get this plugged in. I would actually like to use my microphone if that's possible. Yeah, so I have a little graphic here. So you can, let me offer you this little menu. I call it Youth Ministry a la carte. And Youth Ministry a la carte says, well, if you want me, because here's why, and I put this together, you say, Paul, this is silly. Yeah, it's a little silly, but, going to kids' ball games, that'd be $50 a game, please. Okay. Actually listen to boring sermons. That'll be $75. If you want me to pay attention, you're going to have to pay me for my attention. That's $75. If you want me to be able to say, great job, and listen to what you said, $75 on a Sunday morning. Staff meetings. Well, that's going to be $125 because usually staff meetings are not the greatest. So I'm going to charge you $125 to have me there because you're probably going to waste my time. Events, right? $150. So if you want me to do a youth event, well, that's going to be $150. Then dealing with parents. Part-time youth pastors dealing with parents. It's $250 a parent. Okay. If I'm dealing with a mom and a dad, it's $500 total. If I'm dealing with a mom or a dad, then that's $250. Okay. And then a lock-in, if you want me to do a lock-in, that's $1,000. That's $1,000 per child. You say, Paul, that's silly. Why would you put that? You know what's silly? Silly is, if you think this is silly, then paying a youth pastor part-time salary to do a full-time job is silly. That's ridiculous. You think this is ludicrous? It's ludicrous to pay a youth pastor to cheapen their calling and cheapen what you're asking them to do is silliness. And so I put this up here because I think part-time youth pastors, if you're listening to this, that you have to be able to judge. Listen, I know if you're young, you really want to get into it. You really want to get into the ministry. You really want to get into doing something, and you're willing to bite on these opportunities. And the problem is that you're going to be asked to do more maybe than what you're going to be comfortable doing. And really, it's a setup for potential failure because eventually you're going to lose steam. They're not going to, churches are looking to pay you something, to limit their budget, to pay you something, and try to squeeze the most out of you. And because you're passionate, you're going to do it until you realize that what they're paying you and what they're asking you for is not quite on the level. So I would encourage you that a negotiation probably needs to happen between you and whoever's you're thinking about, working for. Is what is part-time? How many hours is that? And what do you see that including? It's okay to ask to be specific. It's okay to ask. And it's okay, by the way, to be willing to say no and walk away and say, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do this amount of work for that amount of pay. There's all kinds of jobs out there that you could do, work for yourself, all kinds of things. But we lowball our calling and our youth and being involved in youth ministry simply to get our foot in the door and those kind of things. I'm saying, no, don't do that. You wouldn't do it in a lot of other jobs. I would say don't do it in a youth ministry job as well.